Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is for you when you're watching this video. Welcome to Reverend Cassandra's weekly podcast. So not podcast, just YouTube video. I'd like to start with an idea of journey. And one thing that we say over and over again in Unitarian Universalism is that faith is a journey. It's not a destination. It's not a label or a status. You know, your journey doesn't end when you become a member of High Street, but it continues because we focus less on belief, which is kind of a static label kind of thing, and more on practice, more on how you live. How does what you believe impact how you live? That's the journey part. So today, middle of June 2020, we are witnessing a lot of protests, a lot of unrest, a lot of anguish, a lot of grieving and raging, and also a lot of hope. And for a lot of people, it feels like the beginnings of what the civil rights movement felt like back in the 50s and 60s. And what I want to say is that being an anti-racist is also just as much a journey as being Unitarian Universalist is. So on one level, Crossroads Ministry put out this spectrum. So here's another kind of journey type word, it's a spectrum. So institutions can put themselves on a spectrum, and on the one hand, on the very beginning side of the spectrum, an institution is an exclusive institution that publicly denies entrance to African Americans, to people of color. And on the other side of the spectrum, there is the fully inclusive anti-racist organization in a transformed society. And there's like 9 or 10 different kind of mile markers on this spectrum. And so it's start where you are. No one is at the very end because our society is not transformed yet. So no one is fully woke, right? But maybe from a more spiritual level, wherever you are on this journey, you are welcome. We're not a club of saints. We're a school of learners. And all of us need all of us to make it. So just a little quick, caveat there, not all behaviors are welcome. That's why we have covenant. That's why we call people back into covenant, and if necessary, we ask that people take a little time away, kind of like a time out, until they're ready to come back into covenant, because individualism is a characteristic of white supremacy culture, and letting the individual destroy the community is part of that individualism. But all people are welcome, and not just welcome, but needed. We need everyone in order for this transformation to happen. So on that note, I just wanted to share, hopefully humbly, my journey of becoming an anti-racist. And I definitely don't think that I'm there yet. But so my journey, born in Seattle, Washington, up until about age 5, my family lived in a fairly racially diverse part of Seattle, more of the urban part. And then when I was 5, my parents chose to move to a suburb north of Seattle that became a separate city later on called Shoreline. And that suburb was not as racially diverse. It was mostly white, but they chose to move there because the school district was much better there. And let's acknowledge that reality of the school district being better and the wider part of that region, being wealthier, is not devoid of white supremacy, and we were participating in that whole system with our move. Then, went to college and kind of started, well, not then, but, my whole life could be said, a gradual awakening. In college, I learned about racism and what it would mean to be an anti-racist. That was when I first took my, the half-day training from the People's Institute for Liberation and Beyond, I think is their full title. And just my eyes were opened. Then after college, eventually went to seminary at Starr King School for the Ministry, and educating to counter oppressions and create just and sustainable society is the lens through which every single class is taught. That is the goal through which that is the lens through which every single class is taught, whether it's like preaching, whether it's, worship and arts, or whatever it was. It doesn't have to be explicitly about racial justice, for example. But educating to counter oppressions was the lens for everything at that school. That really helped me on my journey. And then when I was serving the UU Community Church of Southwest Michigan in Portage, Michigan, and Kalamazoo is the larger city there, I was encouraged and definitely supported in going to the 2.5-day anti-racism training put on by, I think, Crossroads Ministry based in Chicago. And then was just part of a community. Like, my roommate was learning to become an anti-racist trainer through one of those organizations, and so her passion really inspired me. And then here in Macon last fall, the Racial Equity Institute based in North Carolina came to Macon, and they did a 2-day training for different leaders in the community in Macon, and I was able to be part of that. So I say all of that stuff not to toot my own horn of expertise or anything like that, but to say that I wasn't born screaming, yes, anti-racist identity and practice, yes, racial justice, or, wailing against racial injustice. I wasn't very proactive. I was like the reluctant radical, just like William Ellery Channing was in regards to abolition. But the important thing was that I didn't say no. I never said no at any point in my life. And so I kept on learning, and now I'm at the point of saying yes, that being an anti-racist and having an anti-racist life is as much a part of my identity as being a mom and as being a minister and as being a wife. And it's something that I would give my life to. So it's been transformative for me. So I want you to join me on this journey of becoming an anti-racist and working for an anti-racist world. Kind of the practical part of that is that no individual is smarter than their group, smarter than the group, because, the group is what lynches people. So it doesn't matter how woke we all are individually, we need everyone to be on this journey with us. And then the other part of that is because of what we believe, that all of us need all of us to make it. That we want to be part of a movement that is inclusive and not just a club of saints, but is really inclusive and loving and reflects God's boundless love. So just a couple of simple ideas for, especially if you are white, places to start if you are white and you have some white friends that you think are a little bit further along the journey than you are, I would reach out to them maybe first and ask them for resources on where to start. Just in general, like a couple of resources would be just try to surround yourself with Black-led movements, organizations on the internet, on Twitter, Black authors, other authors of color, and also if you have a friend of color who you trust, you could ask them to be your accountability buddy and have like regular check-ins about how you both are doing as far as being an anti-racist, working for an anti-racist world. So those are a couple of ideas. I really, truly want you to join me on this journey because our lives depend on it. Lots of love to you all. Miss you so much. I'll see you soon. Bye.